Have you ever woken up with the feeling that a dream wasn't just a dream, as if an invisible presence had touched you, warned you, protected you, even if you couldn't explain it in words? What if I told you that, at that moment when you were sleeping, an angel might have whispered a message directly from the spirit world, a message as subtle as it was powerful? Maybe you've never thought about it, but angels don't always appear with wings and bright lights. Sometimes they speak to us through mysterious images, soft voices, or enigmatic symbols that appear in our dreams. And the most intriguing thing is that many only realize this after something unbelievable happens. Have you ever been through this? Around the world, thousands of people report receiving warnings, advice, and even deliverances in dreams that seem too real to ignore. These are heartbreaking stories of mothers who heard a name being called moments before they saved their children, of men and women who gave up on a journey after a disturbing dream and later discovered they had escaped tragedy. Coincidence? Or a divine sign? Stay with me until the end, because what you are about to discover now may surprise you. We are talking about something that goes beyond reason, beyond logic, a subtle, almost invisible intervention. But transformative. After all, the spiritual world is much closer than we imagine. And angels, when they act, often do so in silence, when our minds are most open, during sleep. But how do you know if the dream you had was just the result of your unconscious, or if, in fact, carried an angelic message? Is there a way to interpret these signs? Is there a common pattern in the reports of those who have been touched by these heavenly presences? Spirituality teaches us that divine signs can appear in the most unusual forms, and dreams are a portal where the body rests but the soul listens. When we sleep, we leave behind the noise of the world, the doubts of the mind, and make room for the invisible to speak. It is in this space that angels can act, guiding, healing, delivering, without us even knowing that we have been saved. Have you ever had a dream about someone who seemed out of this world? A stranger who looked you in the eye and said, "Don't go down that path." Or perhaps you woke up with a sense of peace so strong that it felt like you had received a hug from heaven itself. These reports are not rare. Quite the opposite. They are everywhere, and they carry something sacred with them. And today you will understand why these nocturnal encounters can be more than dreams. They can be messages sent by guardian angels, by protective spirits, or even by God, acting through the invisible. So take a deep breath, because what comes next may stir your soul. And maybe, just maybe, it will remind you of something you've experienced but never been able to explain. Maybe you are there, right now, remembering an old dream that has always intrigued you, a feeling that has come back to you with more force now. It may have been a figure of light standing in the distance, a calm voice that called your name, or just that silent certainty that someone was there for you. Does this sound familiar? If this topic makes sense to you, leave it here in the comments. What has touched you the most so far? Or even share that experience that you never had the courage to tell anyone. It may seem like just a rant, but believe me, your story could be exactly the sign someone else is waiting for to believe they are not alone. And if this topic touches you, if it makes you reflect or even give you goosebumps like this video right now, not only because it helps, but because it shows that this type of content has a place and needs to continue to exist. When you click like, what you're saying is, yes, this matters. I want more of this. Oh, and if you feel that this connection goes beyond this video, that there is something else here that touches your spirit, subscribe to the channel. It's free, it's simple, but it means a lot. It's what allows this community to grow, for more people to discover this safe space, to talk about spirituality, divine signs, and angels that touch our lives in subtle and profound ways. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow, and what makes it possible to continue spreading these messages that often arrive at the right time, to the right person, as if they came from a higher place. And now that you are closer to this invisible universe, where dreams can carry sacred warnings and angelic visits, let's go deeper into this journey, because the next stories and signs can reveal even more to you than you imagine. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject. Have you ever stopped to think why certain dreams remain engraved in your memory as if they had actually been experienced? I'm not talking about just any dream, but those that arrive with a strange intensity, with an almost clear message, as if something beyond our understanding was trying to communicate. That's exactly what we're going to talk about now, angelic. Messages in dreams, signs that often arise when our rational mind is asleep, and the spiritual finds a free path to manifest itself. Some say that angels speak to us all the time, but that during sleep we are more sensitive to their presence. Without the noise of the world, without the rush of everyday demands, our soul seems to open a crack to the invisible, and it is there in that silent space that the most subtle signs, or the most urgent messages, emerge. Today we're going to dive into real stories of people who received messages like this. Ordinary people like you and me, who were warned, alerted, or even comforted by beings they couldn't see. Like the woman who dreamed about a fire in her house, and the next day, an electrical fault was discovered just in time to prevent the tragedy. Or the man who, for weeks, dreamed about a bridge falling down, and ended up diverting from a planned trip to the same place on the very day that the structure actually collapsed. Do these stories seem like coincidences? Or is there a hidden truth behind them, something most people would rather not see? The most striking thing is that many of these dreams are accompanied by a presence, not a familiar face nor a clearly recognizable figure, but a being of light, a feeling of intense peace, or even a calm, steady voice that comes with disconcerting clarity. Some people wake up with tears in their eyes, others with their hearts racing, as if they have been touched by something much greater. And when life changes soon after these nocturnal encounters, the question remains, was this just a product of the mind or a real warning from above? That's where the impact of these experiences comes in, because dreams with angelic messages don't just appear to scare or warn. Often they come to prepare, guide, or transform. They are like codes of the soul written in symbols that only those who feel them understand. There is a fine line between faith and intuition, between spirituality and what many call divine coincidence. And it is precisely on this line that dreams about angels lie. They arrive as clues in the midst of darkness, signs that may seem small at first glance, but that carry enormous weight when understood with the heart. Some people report that after these dreams, they began to see life in a completely different way. They changed important decisions, avoided toxic relationships, gave up addictions, found new paths. It's as if something inside them had awakened, as if the dream had been the turning point in a deeper journey, a journey of healing, of reconnection, of purpose. And this leads us to reflect. How many times is the answer you seek there silently delivered in a dream that you ignored? How many times could a transformation have begun if you had stopped to listen to what the invisible wanted to say? The backstage of spirituality is full of mysteries like this. Nothing happens by chance. Every symbol, every repetition, every sensation that haunts you when you wake up can be an invitation to change or a request for attention from above. And when we start taking this seriously, life transforms, our mindset changes, our connection intensifies. Comment here, I'm on this journey too, if you feel like you've already received signs like this, even if you haven't been able to fully decipher them yet. And now that we've started to open that door, just wait until you hear the next stories. In many spiritual traditions, there is an almost unanimous belief. Sleep is not only a physical rest, but also a subtle bridge between the visible and the invisible. It is in this silent space, where thoughts slow down, where reason falls asleep, that angelic messages tend to cross the barriers of logic and touch the most intimate part of the soul. But how can we identify that a dream actually carries a spiritual message and is not just a reflection of what we ate at night or what we watched before going to sleep? This is where we start to get into fascinating territory, because angelic messages in dreams do not follow the same logic as common dreams. They carry something extra, an atmosphere, an emotional impact, a clarity that remains even after waking up. Many reports agree on one thing in common: when an angel appears in a dream, there is an indescribable peace. Even if the message is a warning or a difficult direction, the feeling that remains is one of comfort, not fear. The presence is serene. The voice, when there are words, is firm but sweet, as if each phrase was carefully chosen to touch not only the mind, but the heart. In other cases, the communication is symbolic, a repeating number, a sacred place, an object that shines, a light that has no source. The message in these cases does not come as a direct speech, but as a code, an invitation to reflect. And that is exactly where the process of spiritual discernment comes in, because not every beautiful dream is spiritual, and not every confusing dream is meaningless. There is a subtle difference between a dream and a revelation. A dream dissolves over the course of a day. A revelation remains. It echoes. It visits. You again. It speaks to you through signs, repetitions, and even unexpected encounters. And strange as it may seem, when it is a real message, you know it. Deep inside. Deep in your chest. As if something were being whispered directly to your consciousness. Angelic messages don't come to confuse. They come to align. They don't add to the chaos. They calm, even when they confront. And the curious thing is that the more open your mindset is, the clearer the communication becomes. It's as if you're tuning into a spiritual frequency, and the more you clear the inner noise, the stronger the signal becomes. And here's another important thing. Angels don't speak in a standardized language. They communicate in the way you need to understand, sometimes with images, other times with words, or just with an inexplicable sense of urgency or certainty. It's a kind of fine-tuning between what you're ready to hear and what they need to say. And more often than not, this communication happens when you least expect it, but need it most. That is why, on the most fragile nights, when the world weighs on your shoulders, when your heart bleeds in silence, when your soul wonders if it is really on the right path, it is precisely in these moments that many people report having dreamed of lights, voices, beings, messages, as if heaven were there, just waiting for you to close your eyes so it can reach you. And those who think that this only happens to religious or enlightened people are mistaken. No, the messages come to everyone, because everyone, without exception, is going through some invisible journey, a battle that no one sees, a transformation that happens behind the scenes of the soul, and the angels are often like silent companions on this journey. They do not invade. They wait. They observe. And when the heart opens, they speak. But recognizing this requires attention, a sensitivity that goes beyond what is logical, and that is exactly why so many people ignore the signs. They wake up, feel something strange, but rush into their routine and let the message dissolve. And with that, they miss precious opportunities for direction, clarity, and even protection. So if something in you is starting to remember a dream now, perhaps something that seemed meaningless but left a mark, maybe it wasn't for nothing. Maybe it was an attempt to make contact, a reminder, a warning, an answer you asked for but didn't know where to find. Comment here. That makes sense to me, if any part of this conversation sparked something inside you. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject. Because when we talk about angelic messages in dreams, we are not just dealing with the mystical, but with a symbolic and deeply emotional language. And it is precisely at this point that many are surprised, when they realize that certain signs that seemed banal actually carried something subtle, almost like a code coming from another dimension. There is a hidden truth in many of these dreams. They reveal what the eyes cannot see, but the spirit already sensed. And as rare or distant as it may seem, these signs are more common than you might think. Some people, for example, dream of white wings, but they are not ordinary wings like the ones you would see in a fantasy or cartoon. They shine, they seem alive, and they carry a power that cannot be described in words, only felt. The person wakes up with tears in their eyes, or with a lighter heart, as if they had been enveloped by something inexplicably greater than themselves. This is more than a symbol. It is a spiritual reminder, a subtle touch of something that is beyond the veil. In other cases, there is an intense light, but this light does not burn the eyes, nor does it blind. On the contrary, it warms, it calms. It illuminates parts of the mind and soul that have been in darkness for a long time. This light, in dreams, usually appears when someone is in crisis, in doubt or facing a big decision. It is as if the universe is trying to say, "You are not alone, keep going." A welcoming presence is also common. It is not necessarily a visible figure. Sometimes you feel like there is someone there with you, an energy, a support, and even though you cannot see a face, you know that you are being watched with love. This type of presence usually appears in moments of great emotional pain, such as mourning loss or deep feelings of loneliness. And the impact of this can last for days, because the feeling is too real to ignore. And then there are those soft voices, short phrases, but they say exactly what you needed to hear. A simple word, a name, a reminder. These voices don't shout, they don't scare. They whisper, as if each syllable was created just to touch the exact spot that was dormant in you. Many times, these words come as advice that you didn't want but needed, or as truths that you already knew but were avoiding looking at. There are also direct warnings. And these, yes, can be a little more intense. Dreams that seem almost real, in which something happens, an accident, a loss, a wrong turn, and upon waking your heart is racing. But instead of fear, there is clarity, a desire to change course, a different awareness. It is as if the angel is saying, "Pay attention. This is serious." And the most curious thing is that, after these dreams, many people report concrete changes, decisions avoided, paths revised, encounters that seemed unlikely. But that happened. These signs are repeated in reports from people of different cultures, religions, and ages. The scenario may change, the symbolic language may vary, but the essence is the same. The dream affects you, not at the level of fantasy, but of transformation. It invites you to wake up even when you are asleep, and this is where the journey begins to take on another layer. Because from the moment you recognize these patterns, something changes. You start to observe more closely. You start to remember details. You start to wake up with a sense that something has been revealed behind the scenes of your consciousness. And little by little you realize that there is a conversation happening, a silent but constant conversation between your soul and something bigger. And what seemed like just a coincidence starts to make sense. The number that repeats, the music that plays in the dream and then on the radio, the name that appears in the dream and reappears in a random conversation. These are loose pieces that are starting to fit together, and each fit brings a revelation, a confirmation, a peace. This subtle connection may also be accompanied by a specific symbol that only makes sense to you, an animal, a flower, a phrase, a place. Angels, it seems, do not work with fixed patterns. They adapt to the emotional and symbolic language of the person receiving the message. And so oftentimes the same symbol can have different meanings for different people. The key is in how it touched you, what it made you feel, what memory it awakened. Incidentally, it is interesting to note that angelic signs do not usually come with ego. They do not feed vanity. They do not inflate the eye. They bring humility, gratitude, clarity, and a deep sense that we are in fact being cared for, even in times when everything seems to be falling apart. Sometimes the message comes to confirm something you've already been feeling. Other times it comes to show you a direction you didn't want to see, but it almost always comes at the right time, neither before nor after. And the more you train your perception, the more sensitive you become to capturing these messages clearly. It's like tuning an instrument. When your intuition is cultivated, it begins to vibrate along with these signals. You start to trust yourself more. You start to make choices more consciously. And, little by little, you realize that you are actively participating in a silent conversation with the divine. Write it down. I'm on this journey too. If you have ever lived or felt something like this, and somehow you know that it was not just any dream. ChatGPT said, "And the more you open yourself to this perception, the clearer the presence of this subtle intelligence that has been with you since the beginning of your journey becomes." And it is no exaggeration to say that some dreams, however brief they maybe, carry an impressive precision, as if each element had been placed there with a millimeter purpose. Sometimes it is only when the emotional dust settles that you understand. That was not just imagination, it was communication. And, if all this makes sense to you, there is a material that I prepared very carefully and that can help you even more in this process. It is called Reading Your Birth Angel. Is practical, direct content that connects you with personalized guidance from the angelic kingdom to navigate the most powerful transformations in your life. This material is complementary to what we talked about here and can save you a lot of time in practice, because it clearly shows you the signs, characteristics, and even the blocks that your angel may be trying to show you now. It's here in the description, but I might take it down in the next few days. So if it makes sense to you, take a look while it's still available. Now back to our point. There is something that still needs to be said about these dreams that many ignore, but that can completely change the way you understand what you are receiving at night. And that's where a part comes in that, for me, has always been one of the most fascinating, when a simple dream turns into a clear, direct warning, and sometimes even a life-saving one. Because behind that symbolic image, that strange sensation when waking up, or that detail that insists on remaining in the mind, there may be much more than chance. There may be an urgent message, a loving interference from the invisible, trying to prevent something that has not yet happened. Maria had never been very interested in spirituality. She was practical, focused, one of those people who prefer to have their feet firmly on the ground. But on a seemingly ordinary night, she had a dream that left her deeply shaken. In the dream, she was driving down a deserted road, surrounded by tall trees, as if she were going somewhere she couldn't see clearly. Suddenly a sharp turn, a car coming in the opposite direction, its headlights blinding your vision. Everything was in slow motion until the impact. She woke up gasping for breath with her heart racing and a strange anguish in her chest, as if the dream had been more real than anything else that day. She looked at the clock. It was 4:44 in the morning. A number that later she would discover had a special meaning when it came to angelic messages. That day she had planned to travel very early to visit her mother in another city. Everything was ready, but the dream wouldn't leave her head. On impulse and or by intuition, she decided to postpone the trip. And it was only late in the afternoon, while watching the news, that something froze her stomach. A serious accident had happened right on the highway she would be using. Same time, same stretch of the curve, and the image that appeared on TV seemed to have come from her own dream. Coincidence? For those who believe only in chance, perhaps. But for those who already understand that there are more subtle forces operating behind the scenes of our existence, this was just another confirmation that there is indeed a silent care surrounding us. Sometimes it manifests itself through a gentle push, other times through intense and unmistakable dreams. And the most curious thing is that the more a person begins to notice these signs, the more frequent they become, as if the channel of communication were opening and trust was strengthening on both sides. This type of experience is not exclusive to spiritual people. It happens to anyone who is paying attention. It is a question of mindset, sensitivity, and openness to accepting that not everything needs to have a logical explanation to be real. In many cases, the impact of these messages is precisely what leads the person to change direction, rethink decisions, or protect themselves from something that has not even happened yet. And what few people know is that these dreams often carry specific codes, a feeling of urgency that doesn't go away, images that insist on repeating themselves, or an emotional atmosphere so intense that when you wake up, it's as if you're still living inside it. These are layered dreams, and if you know how to interpret the signs correctly, they can work as a kind of intuitive map, a subtle but incredibly effective guide to getting through periods of transformation. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because there is a hidden truth behind many dreams that seem strange, but are actually trying to warn you about important decisions, cycles that need to be ended, or even relationships that no longer serve your path. Comment below. This makes sense to me if you have ever felt something similar, or know someone who has gone through a similar situation, because dreams don't just warn, sometimes they heal. And when that happens, it's as if a part of our soul receives something it's been missing for a long time. Direction, a spark of meaning, a reminder that we're still here for a reason. John is an example of that. For months, he lived in a silent darkness, the kind of darkness that we disguise with automatic smiles, with ready-made answers, with phrases like, "Everything's fine," when in fact, it's not. He had already lost interest in the things he used to love. He felt as if time was passing too slowly, and at the same time as if nothing was worth it anymore. The mornings were a challenge, the nights even worse. His friends noticed, but João always said it was just a phase. Deep down, he no longer knew if he wanted to keep fighting. Until one night, something changed. In the dream, he saw himself in an open field, surrounded by a golden light that didn't come from anywhere in particular. It seemed to emanate from everything around him. And in front of him, a being with a serene appearance, lightly dressed and eyes that seemed to see far beyond what was visible. The being approached slowly and said, in a voice that didn't come out of his mouth, but echoed directly in his mind, "You still have a mission." That was it. Nothing more. But it was enough. João woke up in the middle of the night, with tears in his eyes and a strange feeling in his chest, as if someone had lit a candle inside him. That wasn't just a dream, it was a rescue, a reminder, something that crossed the barriers of logic and touched directly the most forgotten part of himself, the one he already thought was lost. The next day, without knowing exactly why, he decided to call a therapist that a friend had recommended some time ago. He began treatment, resumed his walking routine, started writing again, and little by little something began to be reborn. It didn't happen overnight, but the simple fact of feeling that there was a purpose, that he was not alone, made João rewrite his own story from that moment on. This kind of experience, as subtle as it may seem, has a profound impact, because it's not just about the content of the dream, it's about what it awakens. Many times we cannot explain it with words, but we feel it strongly, and that feeling can change everything. It could be the push you needed, the clarity we didn't see, the courage to make decisions that we have been putting off for a long time. Many people live waiting for great signs, a voice from heaven, a radical change, something almost cinematic. But in practice, the true signs come in a delicate, almost silent way, and that is exactly why so many people ignore them. But those who develop the right sensitivity begin to see behind the scenes of this communication, and understand that there is indeed a loving intelligence behind it all. A force that does not abandon us, even when we have already given up. And remember, we are not talking about religion, doctrine, or specific belief. We are talking about connection, about presence, about something that goes through us and that, when we allow it, can bring real healing, not only to the body but mainly to the soul. John did not see angels with wings. He did not have a mystical vision in the traditional sense, but he felt with every cell in his body that there was something greater taking care of him, and that was enough to ignite a new phase in his journey. How many times have you had a dream that has affected you for days, or a feeling that is hard to explain when you wake up, as if you had experienced something that goes beyond reason? Well, maybe that was also a touch, a message, a breath of fresh air. That is why it is so important to pay attention to these details, because they are the ones that in the end reveal hidden truths that the waking mind is not always able to grasp. And the most incredible thing? When you start to accept these signs, it's as if you've opened a direct channel to something that has always been there, but that you now recognize. This internal transformation changes the way you see challenges, how you position yourself in life, and even how you react to your own pain. Because you understand that everything, absolutely everything, can have a purpose, even that which doesn't yet make sense. Write in the comments, "I'm on this journey too," if at any point you felt that there was something bigger guiding you, even if in a subtle way. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because there is something that always causes a certain discomfort, and at the same time a spark of curiosity in those who begin to reflect on these experiences. After all, what is really behind dreams that seem so real, so precise, so transformative? Could it all be just a product of the mind, a coincidence, Or is there really something bigger revealing itself there behind the scenes of consciousness? Science, with its objective precision, has a name for this: synchronicity or even coincidence. It says that our brain, in search of meaning, connects disconnected dots and transforms neural impulses into narratives full of emotional meaning. And yes, there is beauty in this. The human mind is truly fascinating. But is that really all it comes down to? Because look, when a dream comes exactly on the night someone is about to make a dangerous decision, and the next day changes the course of that person's life, does that really sound like a mere coincidence? When someone sees, in detail, a place they've never been to, and sometime later recognizes that same place in real life, is it really just a random creation of the mind? These questions have no definitive answer, and perhaps that is the point. The mystery lies precisely there, between what can be proven and what can only be felt. It is in this gap between reason and intuition that many powerful things happen. And the most curious thing, the more we try to explain with logic, the more we realize that some experiences go beyond any rational formula. There are reports of people who have dreamed about specific situations, an accident, a conversation, even an unfamiliar face, and, days or weeks later, have experienced them with frightening precision. Science analyzes, of course. It tries to attribute everything to thought patterns, residual memory, or even statistical randomness. But what happens when this happens again? When the impact is so direct that a person changes their entire life because of a simple dream. It is at this point that many begin to see another possibility, that there is indeed a greater intelligence acting through means that we do not yet understand, and that perhaps dreams are one of the most subtle forms of this communication. As if the divine or universal consciousness, call it what you will, were always trying to reach us, not shouting, not imposing, just suggesting, gently touching the soul, with images, sensations, symbols, and messages disguised as daydreams. This is the kind of thing that changes the way we see the world, because there is now a new layer to everything. You start paying attention to the repetitions, the little signs, the inexplicable sensations that come out of nowhere. You begin to realize that not everything is random, and that behind the routine there is something that observes us, guides us, and sometimes even protects us, even when we don't even realize it. Of course, it's more comfortable to say that it's all coincidence. Then we feel in control. We avoid the discomfort of thinking that perhaps we are not the only ones in charge of the journey itself. But at the same time, it is precisely this discomfort that expands consciousness, because when we open ourselves to the possibility that there is something bigger at work, we begin to see the world through different eyes. We come to recognize the value of more subtle experiences, respecting the silence, listening more to the heart, and, most importantly, to trust that certain things don't need to make immediate sense. They just need to make sense on the inside. And it's curious how these moments often happen when we are most fragile. It is in chaos, in pain, in doubt, that the presence of the invisible manifests itself most strongly, as if to say you are not alone. Even if everything seems to be falling apart, even if nothing makes sense now, there is a path being prepared. This, in itself, is already healing. It is already relief. It is already a miracle. The point is, you can't prove the divine with formulas, but you also can't ignore the impact that certain events have on us. If a dream saves a life, changes a mindset, transforms a decision, it becomes more than just a nocturnal image. It becomes a channel, an instrument, an answer that may already be inside us. It just needed the right form to manifest itself. And here comes an important detail. How open are we to listening? Because often the signs are everywhere. In a dream, in a phrase that someone says by chance, in a piece of music, in a feeling that appears out of nowhere. But if we are too distracted, with our minds full of noise, we lose. And he loses, not because the signal didn't come, but because he didn't know how to recognize it. This openness is a choice, a conscious decision to get out of the automatic, to break with the idea that everything needs to be logical, predictable, measurable. Because deep down, most of the most valuable things in life, like love, hope, faith, forgiveness, cannot be explained logically either. They are felt. And precisely for this reason, they are the ones that transform the most. The hidden truth that many people don't want to face is that we live surrounded by signs. But haste, disbelief, and fear make us blind. We prefer to move on as if nothing had happened. But the curious thing is that once you start to recognize this other level of reality, there is no going back. It's like a veil has been lifted. And from that moment on, everything changes. Write in the comments, this makes sense to me. If you also believe that certain coincidences carry a greater purpose in disguise. Because understanding whether a dream carries an angelic message is not something that can be summed up in a simple checklist or a rigid set of signs. It is a delicate process, which involves a much deeper connection with what we feel deep down inside, something that the rational mind often takes a while to grasp, but which the heart immediately recognizes. Imagine that, upon waking, you feel a different sensation, a kind of calm or even a certain weight of importance that cannot be explained. This is the first and perhaps most essential indication that the dream was not just the result of chance or normal brain activity during sleep. When a dream leaves an emotional mark, a kind of affective residue that remains, it is a sign that something bigger may be trying to communicate. Another point that deserves attention is the intensity and clarity of the dream. Angelic dreams are almost always vivid, full of colors, sounds, or sensations that remain engraved in the memory. They do not mix with the confusing, fragmented scenes that we usually have when we sleep. On the contrary, they seem complete, coherent, loaded with symbolism that speaks directly to our soul. The modern mentality, accustomed to rationalizing everything, may try to reduce this to a mere lucid dream or product of the imagination. But the hidden truth is that these dreams have an almost tangible power, as if you had been transported to another dimension, where time and space bend to deliver a clear message. And this message usually comes in the form of protection or guidance. It is common for people who experience angelic dreams to feel, during the dream, a presence of light, a soft voice, or even an invisible hug that brings immediate comfort. It is a type of care that overcomes any fear or anxiety that was present. Before going to sleep, the transformation that this type of experience promotes goes far beyond the world of dreams, because it is reflected in the decisions and attitudes of the following day, changing that person's trajectory. But then comes the most important element, the response of the heart. What differentiates a dream with a message from heaven from an ordinary dream is the internal response it provokes in you. The heart feels it first, before the mind can explain or analyze it. It is a deep intuition, almost as if your entire being recognizes that it has a special meaning, a kind of internal click, a light that turns on and does not easily go out. Understanding this feeling is not easy. You need to learn to listen to the silence that comes after the dream, the inner space that opens up when you stop trying to rationalize everything. This listening requires a change of mindset, letting go of haste and anxiety, and allowing yourself to delve into your own sensitivity. It is at this moment that many people begin to notice the subtlety of angelic signs, because they almost never come in the form of major warnings or obvious signs. They are small details, whispered messages that only become evident when we are willing to look more closely within. Another essential aspect to identify a dream with an angelic message is the context of the person's life at that moment. When someone is going through a difficult phase, be it an emotional crisis, a period of important decisions, or even moments of deep doubt, dreams become privileged channels for sending these signals. It is as if the backstage of reality were opening up to offer invisible support, a guiding hand when everything seems uncertain. At these times, the intervention of angels can take many forms. It can be a symbol that refers to protection, such as a bright light. It can be a figure that transmits peace, or even a phrase spoken with authority and love, which echoes within the soul and never leaves. The impact of these dreams goes beyond simple momentary relief. They affect the person's internal structure, influencing their decisions, bringing clarity where there was confusion, and preparing the ground for a profound transformation. It is also important to pay attention to physical sensations upon waking. Often dreams with an angelic message provoke a feeling of warmth, unexpected relaxation, or even a slight pulsating energy in the chest, as if something had been released or activated. These are subtle, but very real signs that indicate that the dream encounter was not a coincidence. Now, of course, not every vivid or powerful dream carries a message of this kind. Often they are simply reflections of what we experience during the day, or even manifestations of unconscious fears and desires. Therefore, developing a critical and open mindset at the same time is essential. It is not about accepting everything as a divine sign, but rather about learning to interpret what makes sense within our journey, what has a real impact on our life, and what promotes a positive change in the way we see things. This perception is a true invitation for an internal transformation because it changes the way we view our dreams and our own intuition. We have come to recognize that the human mind is much more than a mere information processor. It is a bridge between the visible and the invisible, between the conscious and the unconscious, between the earthly and the spiritual. And angelic dreams are one of the clearest manifestations of this connection, a revelation of the behind-the-scenes that shape our reality. By learning to identify these signs, a person begins to take an active role in their own journey, becoming more aware of the decisions they make, more open to listening internally, and more willing to welcome the messages that arise in moments of silence and reflection. This creates a powerful cycle of self-knowledge and transformation, where dreams cease to be just a nocturnal experience and become a real tool for growth and healing. Now, I want you to look at the times in your own life when a dream left a deep impression. How did you feel when you woke up? What sensations came with it? What changes emerged after that dream? This personal connection is the key to opening the door to interpretation, to recognizing that we are often guided by something much greater than our minds can comprehend. Comment: I'm on this journey too. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because receiving a dream with a spiritual message is just the beginning of a journey that can transform not only the way you see life, but the very path you choose to follow. When the night brings this type of encounter, it is as if a portal opens, revealing a little of the invisible backstage that governs the universe and inviting you to actively participate in this exchange, the fundamental piece of this game we call existence. The first essential step after a dream like this is to value it. Often the modern habit is to simply forget, to discard the images and emotions that passed through our minds while we slept, as if they had no real importance. But the truth is that these dreams are true maps, and every detail that you manage to remember can be a crucial piece in unraveling what is to come or illuminating paths that were previously hidden. That is why writing things down is a powerful act, taking a pen and paper and recording the scenes, symbols, sensations, and even the words that you heard. This helps to concretize the message, to take it out of the ethereal plane and transform it into something tangible, something that you can revisit whenever you need to. It's not just about keeping the information, but about starting a dialogue with what has been revealed. And this is where prayer or meditation comes in, that sacred moment in which you open yourself to connecting with the divine, with the angels, or with the greater power in which you believe. Prayer doesn't have to be formal or full of difficult words. It can be a simple, sincere conversation where you ask for clarity, protection, and also the wisdom to understand the signs you are receiving. This process strengthens spirituality because it creates a space within you where the light can enter and do the work of transformation. Reflect on what the dream is trying to tell you. Sometimes the message is not immediate and is not revealed in a simple and direct reading. Spirituality is full of layers and mysteries, and that is why angels tend to speak more than once, repeating messages, bringing symbols in different dreams, so that you can, over time, put together the complete puzzle. Each detail is a piece that, in isolation, may seem vague, but together forms a powerful revelation. So it takes patience and attention, cultivating an open mind and a receptive heart to capture these nuances. Furthermore, acting on what you have received is essential. Spirituality that does not impact practical life tends to become a distant concept, a beautiful idea without real power. When you feel that a dream brings you a sign, it is time to reflect on your decisions, on the steps you have taken, and allow yourself to adjust your route. Sometimes this means internal changes, a transformation in the way you think, feel, and act. Other times it is necessary to make concrete decisions, change habits, and let go of old patterns that no longer serve you. This movement has a profound impact because it transforms your journey into something alive, dynamic, and full of meaning. One of the most valuable secrets is to trust the process, even when full understanding is still far away. The hidden truth often reveals itself little by little, at different times in various dreams, in everyday signs that dialogue with what has been shown. The connection with the divine is a road that is built step by step, and each dream is a point of light that illuminates a stretch of that road. Paying attention to the details, including the small signs that seem insignificant, can be the difference between following a confusing path or navigating with clarity and purpose. This practice strengthens not only your spirituality, but also your mindset. We begin to see life as a great web of meanings, where each experience, each emotion, each decision is intertwined with a greater purpose. This brings about a profound transformation in the way we face challenges, because we no longer feel alone or at the mercy of chance. We begin to realize that we are supported by invisible forces which work in our favor, and that we are active participants in this great spectacle that is life. It is also important to respect the time of each process. Not every dream translates into a clear message immediately, and not all angelic guidance will manifest in an obvious way. Some answers take time to emerge, and this requires patience and persistence. What matters is the willingness to open up, to keep your heart receptive, and to walk with confidence even if the road seems foggy at times. True spirituality is not a magic formula that delivers instant answers, but a journey of continuous discovery, where each dream with a message is an invitation to dive deeper into the essence of who we are. Finally, it's important to remember that this experience is unique to each person. What works for one person may not work for another, and that's part of the mystery and beauty of this process. Don't get caught up in rigid rules or external expectations. Let your own intuition be your guide. Let your heart know what's true for you. Spirituality is a universal language, but at the same time it's deeply personal, and it's precisely this mix that makes it so powerful and transformative. Now, I want you to think about how you can apply this to your life today. What space are you willing to make for these dreams and spiritual messages to manifest? What small or large changes can you begin to make to welcome this unseen guidance? This is an opportunity to look within and begin an honest conversation with yourself, to discover the truths that lie beyond what meets the eye, but that influence everything you are and do. Comment there. That makes sense to me. Perhaps you have already received a message. Something subtle, a feeling you couldn't explain, a dream that seemed more real than anything else. And only now are you beginning to realize that there was much more to it than just the disconnected images you had in your mind during sleep. What if that dream was more than you imagined? If it was a message from the invisible, a bridge built between the spiritual world and your daily life, bringing signs, guidance, or warnings to transform your journey? This possibility opens up a universe of deep reflections on how we relate to what cannot be seen, but can be felt. Life is made up of these encounters between the concrete and the abstract, between the visible and the intangible, and learning. To recognize when the sky is speaking to us is like gaining a secret map for a journey full of meaning. It is not something distant or inaccessible, but a truth that is available to everyone, even if it is often hidden by the noise of everyday life and the speed of the decisions we make. Thinking that angels, these subtle presences, are present, even in silence, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves, completely changes our mindset about what it means to be protected. It is not an obvious care, stamped in great miracles or grand acts, but a delicate impact, an invisible touch that manifests itself in the details, in the inner calm that appears before the storms, in the clarity that appears after confusing moments. This perception invites an internal transformation that goes far beyond simple belief. It is a living experience that shapes our choices and strengthens our soul. Often, true protection happens behind the scenes, away from human eyes, where spiritual decisions intertwine with our daily actions to create an invisible script that guides our steps. Knowing this helps us understand that each dream, each sign, each intuition is part of a great movement, a dance between heaven and earth, between what we want and what we really need. This revelation brings a new awareness of the power we have when we connect with this subtle network of energies and messages, expanding our ability to interpret the signs and make choices that truly make sense. As this awareness grows stronger, transformation happens naturally. We come to realize that nothing in life is by chance, that even difficulties, doubts, and moments of silence carry a hidden purpose, a truth waiting to be discovered. This vision broadens our understanding of the personal journey, showing that each challenge is also an opportunity for growth, that each step is an advance towards something greater, even when the path seems uncertain. And when this mindset becomes part of our daily lives, the impact is not limited to ourselves, but spreads to everything around us. It is in this process that the true power of practical spirituality is revealed. It is not an escape from reality, but an invitation to delve deeper into it, to uncover the hidden layers that sustain our experiences and emotions. By embracing this wisdom, we make room for a life more aligned with who we truly are, our deepest values, and the intentions we wish to cultivate. The journey, then, ceases to be a solitary path and becomes an adventure shared with forces that transcend common understanding. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding the role of dreams and angelic messages goes far beyond the simple act of interpreting symbols or recording nocturnal memories. It is about developing a heightened sensitivity to capture the hidden truths that lie at the heart of existence, those that, although subtle, carry a power capable of redefining destinies and opening doors that previously seemed closed. It is in this subtlety that lies the secret to living with greater presence, purpose, and clarity, seeing beyond the surface of things and accessing knowledge that is, at the same time, mysterious and deeply transformative. When we begin to look at life through this lens, we realize that every dream with a spiritual message is a small inner revolution. He challenges us to question our certainties, to let go of excessive control, and to trust in the wisdom that comes from a place beyond the rational. This openness creates a fertile space for decisions that are not just based on immediacy, but that reflect a broader understanding of the impact we want to make on the world and on our own evolution. It is a journey that involves courage to face the unknown and humility to accept that we do not always have all the answers, but that the path is revealed as we walk. And in this movement, revelations begin to multiply, not only in dreams, but at different times of the day, in coincidences that arise in the people who cross our path, in the words we read or hear. Everything becomes part of a great mosaic of signs that, when aligned, connect us with the deepest truth of our being and with the greater purpose that sustains our existence. This awakening, in turn, has a powerful effect on how we live, how we relate, and how we choose to invest our energy and attention. This awareness expands our perception beyond the obvious, showing that we are part of a complex and beautiful web where each dream is a thread that intertwines with many others, forming patterns that carry meaning and invite us to evolve. It is a hidden truth that few allow themselves to explore, but that, when accessed, transforms our mentality, spirituality, and the way we view life. It is what makes it possible not only to dream, but to wake up to the dream and fully live each moment of this unique experience. Comment: I'm on this journey too. If you've made it this far, it's because you truly value these deep connections, these truths that aren't always easy to see, but that make all the difference in our journey. If this content has brought you some clarity, a spark of reflection, I invite you to continue exploring this path with us. Subscribing to the channel is a way to ensure that these messages, which touch you deeply and help transform you, reach you whenever you need them. And of course, if this conversation made sense to you, leave a comment saying I'm with you until the end. I like to know that those who are on this journey with me, feeling every word, and you know that good feeling of having someone who understands what you're going through. The like here is almost like a nod, a silent confirmation of this connection we created throughout the video. No rush, just letting it flow. Oh, and before you leave, there's a video here that complements this subject in a special way. It's really worth checking out. Click and stay with me there. We'll continue on this journey of discovery together.